Crafty Friends, I'm Debbie from Simply Special Crafts, and today we're going to take a look at the Hunkydory craft stack called an Art Deco Christmas. Brittany brought this one to me and said, this needs some attention because it's really pretty and I think people are missing it. Well, she was right. It's beautiful, filled with glamour, elegance, and fashions from the 1920s. Let's take a look. This is an Art Deco Christmas from Hunkydory Crafts. It's one of their craft stacks. And while we've sold a lot of craft stacks over the years, I have to admit this is the first time I actually sat down and did one. Now, when Brittany brought me this and said, "Hey, Debbie, this needs some attention, so maybe you should work one of these up," I expected, since it was 8x8 toppers, to get 12, 15 cards out of it. I sat down at 10 o'clock one night and thought, I'll whip this out in a couple hours. I finished at 10 a.m. the next morning with 29 completed cards, so just wait till you see what we can get out of this craft stack. It's beautiful. Before we start looking at the cards, let's see what you actually get in the kit. This is an 8x8 bound book. You get some card ideas and directions for the Christmas poppers and little boxes. Yes, you get to make some little gift boxes and Christmas crackers also, and those are on separate sheets in here. Here's the first of our toppers. You get 2 each of the toppers. Each of the toppers not only has the images, but it will have a sentiment or some little tags or something along with it. So here's the second one of those. I love this one with the white Christmas tree. Isn't it beautiful? You just look at the fashions and the elegance and the glamour of this period. It's really stunning. Oops. It doesn't want to open up. It just wants to pop along the die cutting lines. These toppers are pre-foiled and die cut. I believe, yes, this one's gold throughout, I believe. I don't think any of the toppers are different. The foiling is gold all the way through. Second one of those. Just look at the colors. Isn't that beautiful? Second one of those. So you have 8 sheets. Here's the final design. So we have 8 sheets of these foiled and die-cut toppers. These are the little boxes. This kit makes 2 of the little boxes like this. All you have to do is add your own gold thread. You can either use these as little ornament boxes or little gift boxes, but they're pretty simple and easy to make. These are the Christmas crackers. It's like the traditional British Christmas crackers. And I believe the kit makes 6 of these. Let's check. There's 2, 4. I guess it's 4 of them. I thought it had more. Huh. I have to stop trying to count things. Yeah, I guess it makes 4 of those. Okay, this is something I was really impressed with. Look at these beautiful foiled and die-cut acetate borders. And you get so many of them. After finishing 29 cards, I still had borders left. As we go through, I'll tell you how show you how I used them. Second sheet of those. And then this is also really impressive. These foiled papers are just spectacular. And I can tell you that I was very thrifty with those. I didn't waste an inch of this paper because it's just so beautiful. I wanted to use every little scrap, and I think you'll see that I did. We've got the purple, we've got the green, we've got the dark, it's either blue or black. Can't tell in this light. And then we've got some double-sided papers. Many of them have an image on one side, and it's printed on the back, so you can choose the side you want to use. Aren't they pretty? Lots of beautiful things here. And finally, I love this big one. Wait till you see how I decorated that one. You also get, in the back of the book, you get inserts. Wow. So just to recap, you're getting 12 foiled and die-cut topper sheets. It's because you have the extra sheets of the crackers in the boxes. You get 2 foiled and die-cut acetate sheets. You get 6 foiled gold papers. You get 12 double-sided printed papers, and you get 12 inserts in one book. It's a really complete kit. Let's take a look at some of the cards here. Here's the first of our cards. This one's done on a 5x7 card blank. I brought in my own mirror board, and I covered my 5x7 card. I trimmed this green foiled sheet. Isn't that beautiful? I trimmed that down to be about 1/4 of an inch or so smaller in the 5x7 dimensions in order to have my gold border show all the way around. I put the topper and the greeting, which says, "Have a fun and festive season," up on some foam squares, and it just didn't need any more than that. The foiled papers are so elegant, and the images are so complex that I've taken a little bit of a minimalistic approach to the construction of most of these cards because they just didn't need a lot of extras. So that's our first one. Here's our second. Love purple, and this is just gorgeous, I think. This is a European A6. I trimmed this just a little bit to fit the papers that I had available. As I said, I made 29 cards out of this, and I used every scrap of paper that was available. So in a few cases, I trimmed my cards just a little to fit the paper I had available. This one is covered in gold mirror board. I've trimmed down my double-sided paper to fit and allow my gold borders to show. I took a little tiny strip, just an inch-wide strip, of that gold foiled purple paper, and then I took 2 thin line dazzles, which I brought in from outside the kit. They were not included. And I think it's just beautiful. This tag is up on some foam squares. Very pretty. Here's another purple one. This time I've used a European A6. Once again, I covered my card in gold mirror board, and I put my topper on some foam squares. Then I attached a piece of acetate, one of those acetate borders, and I used tape under this dot, which are gems from Hunkydory Silver and Gold Gems Pack. And under this tag, I have tape there holding that border in place. And it's disguised by the gems and by the little tag that says, "To a special couple." This is a pretty one, I think. I used a Hunkydory DL card for this one, which is approximately 4x8. I used the image out of the image book and brought the ice skating topper right into that image. This is covered with some Rainbow Mary. And then you'll note that I used Rainbow Mary and the topper still has gold, but isn't it beautiful? There's just something about snow scenes and Mary that go together. Now, I think this would also be beautiful to use some glitter touches on the tree and around on the ground, but I haven't done that yet. But I do think that the card turned out beautiful. I put this up on some foam squares. That was it. Really, really pretty card. Okay, here's one in a doorway. And note the layering in this one. I think the layering's fun in this card. I actually used an A6 pearl card in the back because I had some in my drawer. We do have some, I believe, in the store under the brand Anita's in the A6 size. I cut a piece of black mirror board and everything is matted to that black mirror board. I took my topper, I put it on a piece of green background paper that was only slightly larger than my topper, and then I cut a piece of black mirror board that was the same size as the green, and I just offset those a little bit. And then I used a topper of the same girl up on some foam squares, and I think this card turned out beautiful. I really, really like the layering on this card. And note, that's a great way to use up little pieces of paper and still have a really attractive card. This one was fun. On this one, I created my own 5x7 gatefold card. We don't have a gatefold in a 5x7, but it was easy to create. Bryce, if you'll hand me two 5x7 cards in, those aren't 5x7, huh? In the top drawer. So as I was saying, I made my own 5x7 gatefold. Let me show you quickly how to do that. It's very, very easy to do. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take that one of our 5x7 cards and we're going to fold one side into the center. Okay? Then I'm going to take my other side and I'm going to bring it into the center and I'm going to butt it right up against the first one. I want my gatefold to close nice and tight. So I'm putting my first one right up against the second. Now, you could use it just like this, but unless you are covering the back with something fairly heavy, you've got that score lined down the middle of your card. So what I did was take another 5x7 card. I trimmed it to be just a little under 5x7, and I taped it into the center to reinforce the back of my card. And then I decorated. And now, one of the ladies in one of the classes, other online classes where I was showing this card, asked me, do I have a template for doing that, for cutting the arch? And I'll give you the same answer I gave there. Nope. I just was lazy. And let me show you what I mean by lazy. I didn't want to get up and go and find something to measure with. So I used my cutter and I marked my paper. Okay, I've got my card done now. I marked my paper on both sides at the same level. Oops, I didn't bring a pen. There's a pen right next to you there. Pencil, doesn't matter. Pencil, it's fine. Any of them. I marked where I wanted to go to. So I think my cutting was at about 1.5. I marked that on both sides of my card. So there's my area that I'm lining to. And then I grabbed a roll of shaker tape that I had there and I created myself a cut line. And that's how I made my arch. I just cut it off with my scissors then. But didn't this turn out pretty? And so easy to do. I mean, it only took a minute to make the card and then cut it. I had my sheet of greetings had a couple of little ornaments on them. So I cut the strings off the ornaments and used those for door handles. And I lined the inside with some of that really elegant foil paper, put a Christmas greeting in my arch, and I just didn't want more than that. But isn't that going to be pretty? Just standing on the mantle. Isn't that pretty? There's my arch card. Okay. This is another one where I've used that pearl paper in the background. I cut my black Mary, which again is not included in my kit, but all the mirror board I brought in. I cut it slightly smaller than my cream color card. I made a smaller piece of my layering paper. I used one of those pretty borders. Let me show you how I adhered most of my borders. I ran a bunch of borders at a time through my Xyron machine, and as long as the adhesive is even across the back, guys, you can get away with putting a full sheet of adhesive. It's when it looks different where the tape or adhesive runs under it that you get into trouble. So in most cases, I just use Xyron on the back, and it looks great when I put them down. So I wanted to give you that hint as well. So I attached this just using my Xyron machine and a little piece of my border. And some of these where I'm putting a topper in the middle and creating a label underneath, if you want to save and really conserve on your borders, you only have to give as much border here as will actually show. So I could have used a 2-inch piece to create that if I wanted to. Okay, next up. This is one that came from the double-sided papers. And I got all done, and for this one I used a 5 1/4 inch card. I used a 5-inch piece of my gold mirror board. I cut my page down to be slightly smaller than that. I added my 3 gemstones. I added my tag. I may go ahead and decorate this because later you'll see one that I decorated. But just for the sake of showing you what it looked like this, and this is beautiful, I went ahead and just stopped there. Then I went to open my card and realized, oops, I lost track of where my fold line was, and I didn't want to tear up my card by trying to take this off and turn it around. So I was just going to my paper cutter to cut that off, and then I thought, I wonder what would happen if I just scored this in half on the back flap, added a stopper. Would it actually work as a reverse easel card? And the answer, guys, is yes. In fact, it's a new card design that I totally love. Look here. It leans back slightly, really showing off the face of the card. You have plenty of room to write inside, and it's just cute as a bug's ear. So there you go. A new, very easy card design to use. And it's really exactly the same as what we use for our regular easels. I'm just bringing it up from the back, right? So there we go. A new form of easel for you because I made an error. Okay, here's the next one. There's just something about this card right here that appeals to me. I really, really like it. The sense of balance, it's just pretty. It's just pretty. So on this one, another one of those Anita's Pearl cards. You wouldn't have to use those. The white would be just fine too if what you had was white cards. I happen to have the pearl cards, so that's what I was using. A small, I didn't cover it. I cut a slightly smaller piece of gold mirror board. I used my beautiful foiled green paper, and it goes from here to here. Then I took a pretty border piece off of the actual die cut sheet, and I added a piece of border here. And you'll note this doesn't even actually go clear across the green paper, but when you look at it, that's not what strikes you. It's quite pretty. And I just attached everything down to my double-sided paper, but I really like this card. I think it's very pretty. One thing I did do, I wanted to make sure that even though this piece was smaller, I didn't want to make it look like I was hiding that, so I actually put that up on some foam squares and made it more conspicuous, and I think that's one of the reasons why it works. You could very easily take words and put here, and that would be a beautiful touch too. I did not take the time to line these, or I'd be showing you my paper liners inside also. I just didn't do that, but we do have the insert papers to line everything. Okay, here's another one of those cream color cards. This time I've just taken the foiled paper, cut it slightly smaller. I've cut a piece of black mirror board and set on top of that. I set my topper on there. I put my Merry Christmas on the black, and I think that is just really beautiful. Very classy looking. Here's one with some fun and interesting colors that work together. I like the lavender and the teal together. I wasn't sure I would until I actually put them together, and then I thought they were beautiful. I've got a 5x7 card. I've covered it in gold mirror board. I have added my topper, which I just actually glued down flat. Oh, excuse me, I put my lavender paper in the double-sided papers first. Then I glued my topper right on top. I put my Celebrate and Style This Christmas up on some foam squares, and it just didn't need any more than that. It's really pretty. Once again, though, if you decided that you wanted to, I can really see this being beautiful with just some little glitter accents right here in these corners. And possibly even maybe just a little bit up in the fireworks, but it's completely optional. You certainly don't have to do that because it's got lots of glitz and glamour going already. Here's another one where I've done some paper layering. We've got a European A6 card covered in gold mirror board. Covered that in some black mirror board. And left a nice border so my gold and my black show. I've cut this little piece quite a lot more narrow than the black, and put this piece right here, this Festive Wishes, is actually a piece of acetate. I put that in front of my black mirror board. And I actually, to attach this one, I was afraid the adhesive would show through on the black mirror board just because it's so shiny. So I actually put a little piece of tape here, and I put a tiny piece of tape here. I just kept it out of where it says Festive Wishes, and I got away with that just fine. Put a couple of those little gold jewels on either side of that, attached my topper up on some foam squares, and I think it's really pretty. I really like these cards, I bet you can tell. Here's my 5x7 card, and this is just on white. I cut my green foiled paper slightly smaller to allow those white borders to show. You can do that so often with Christmas cards, especially if they have snow scenes, that you can really make use of your white card in the background. Cut my foiled paper slightly smaller. I put on, this is another one of those acetate pieces. And this one actually is one that I ran through the Xyron machine. And see, it doesn't look foggy or messy at all because the adhesive is across the entire piece. So I put this on with acetate, then I just put these here to make it look as if they were holding that in place. They're not. This is up on some foam squares. This tag here is partially resting on this one, and then I have two foam squares, or two stacked behind this tag so that it will lay at the same level. Isn't that pretty? These are beautiful images. Okay, next up. Another really simple card design, but they work. A6 card. My border piece has gone through the Xyron, and then I'm just letting the green show through my border. This is up on some foam squares. 3 little jewels off of my silver and gold jewel pack. Pretty as it can be and very simple. Okay. Here's one at the train. I like this one too. I think it's pretty. Now this one is on a pearl card. Could just as well have been white. And I've put a smaller piece of gold mirror board. I put my purple paper over that. And in this case, I almost wish I had left my purple just a little bit wider and laid my border on top of there. Because as I was afraid in the other one that on top of the shiny mirror board my adhesive would show, I think my adhesive shows just a little bit here. So when you do that, if you design this card in this way, I would recommend bringing that purple out just a little bit further. I don't think it would be so conspicuous. It's not so conspicuous that I wouldn't give the card. I just wanted to give you a tip where yours could look even better than mine. Put my season's greetings above and below with my stickers. This is up on some foam squares. Looks good. I'll identify these stickers and things in the newsletter, guys, that we put out to match this. Here's one of those 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 cards. In this one, I covered my card face almost with just a slightly smaller piece of gold Miri. I used my border on the purple paper, and on the purple paper and the Xyron, I got away with it just fine. Just don't put it right over the mirror board. I cut this piece of paper right here, this purple, to be exactly the same size as my topper sheet. Then I turned the purple at an angle and put the topper on top, and put the topper up on some foam squares, and I just don't think it needed anymore. I think that's very, very pretty. I like that one. Okay, here's another really pretty one. I think it's because they're purple that these all strike me as being beautiful. This one's got a 5 by 7 card covered with that purple foiled paper. And in this case, I had some little corner stickers that were sitting right here. So this is a cutout off of the double-sided papers. And I put that on one of my 6 by 6 Miri blanks, or excuse me, one of my A6 Miri blanks that I trimmed down just a little bit to allow a border around this. And then I just thought it would be fun, since I had some of those tiny corners just sitting here from one of my projects. I added a tiny corner. And a lot of you who have gotten like the kits 1, 2, 3, 4 should have some of those little corners left laying around. Aren't those cute there? Just kind of framing that in like a photo and adding my Merry Christmas. That's all I did, but isn't that just a classy touch? Very nice. Here we go. One of my 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 cards. I covered it in black mirror board. I put just a small piece of my foiled paper behind it. I took a piece of my double-sided paper and I matted that with some gold. I set my topper in the center of that on some foam squares, and then I just took 2 of my thin line borders from Dazzles. And I think this is one of my favorite cards in the kit. I think it's really pretty. It's got a beautiful sense of balance to it. And I'm using scraps of my paper. I'm even using scraps, I think, of my mirror board. And look how pretty that turns out. Just beautiful. Next up, this is kind of a fun one. This is kind of one of those that I said, what if? I'm using another of my square cards. This will be a 5 by 5. I cut a piece of gold and a piece of black that were the same size as my topper. I allowed a nice wide border here when I put down my gold paper, or my purple foiled paper. And then I just fanned those papers out. I put my black one to be really kind of centered in between there. See that? It's kind of centered, or pretty close anyway. When I twisted it, it kind of centered it so it's almost a diamond under there. Then I laid this piece in halfway between my topper and my black so that it's at a little bit less of an angle. And finally my topper is on square on top. But I think this is a really appealing card. It just has a really nice sense of balance to it, and yet it's very different than most of the cards I make. This is what happens when I construct cards. This may have been a 4 a.m. card, but I like the way it turned out. I wouldn't have thought of it at 10 p.m. Okay, here's a traditional easel card. This one is using a 5 1/2 by 5 1/2 square card. I folded the cover. I covered the bottom half with a piece of my red double-sided paper. I covered the top half with my red double-sided paper. I used one of my border strips that are on the run through the Xyron machine to kind of accent that top edge. I put my topper on only putting foam squares under the bottom half of the topper. And then on the inside, I covered it with a piece of my insert paper. I put down my warm wishes. It's up on some foam squares to act as a stopper for my card. And I used 2 border pieces here. And then I had some cutoffs. I took my cutoffs and came back in here and put a 3rd border there. And I think that's really pretty. Pretty and simple and elegant. Okay. Celebrate in Style. We got a 5x7 card covered in my double-sided paper. I put the topper right on there in foam squares, the Celebrate in Style right on top of that. I did nothing else because it's really quite beautiful just like it is. This is one of my daughter's favorite cards of the entire evening, and again, it's very simple, but it's elegant and pretty. Next up, here's another of the skating scenes, because remember, we got 2 of everything. This time, I took a European A6 card and laid it on its side. I took a piece, I think this is about a 1.5-inch piece of my foiled paper and ran across actually I put down a piece of background paper first, sorry. Put my background paper, it's the double-sided snowy paper, and then I put my strip through the center, and then I took this strip, what I had left, I had a little bit left on the end. I cut some 1-inch blocks, one here and one here. I cut them in half on the diagonal, and I glued these corners in place. And then I used some of my thin line stickers to add an additional little ruffle to each of my corners, and I think that's very, very cute. My center topper's up on some foam squares. Next, here's a European A6 card covered in gold mirror board. Here's my, in this case, I have taken, this is actually, let's see, this is a piece off of the double-sided paper, this one right here. And I took, the back side of that was this red double-sided paper. So I matted my image I cut off to fit the card on a piece of the same paper flipped over. And then I took the topper where she's getting into her car and I butted it up along that image so that we just have an extra dimension of the lady getting in her car because it was the same scene. I took a piece of my border that I'd used the Xyron machine on, my little, what's that say, Season's Greetings topper, and I think that's as cute as it can be. Next up, 29 cards, guys, all from that one little kit. Now here's one where I have done what I should have done on the other card earlier. On this card, I've taken my European A6 card, I've covered it in black mirror board, then I cut a piece of gold mirror board that was slightly smaller, and then I used my black double-sided paper for my background. I used a piece of my Xyron acetate down the side, and you can see that this looks much cleaner than the other one did because I put it against the paper instead of against the mirror board. So I like the way this accent turned out. And then I put these jewels just above the concaves on the arch card. And I think that's really pretty. Next up, this is a whole lot like one of the other ones that I did, so I won't go through all the details other than I'm using that white that's already in my card and doing some paper layering. I've got my double-sided, my black Mary, my gold Mary, my double-sided paper, my topper. This is a good example of taking a small topper and making it into something bigger for your card. Because if I just put this topper on that card without all the layered papers, it would look lonesome. I guess it would be too small. But here again, I've also used my Xyron paper, or my Xyron acetate, on top of a darker piece of paper and created my own greeting. This Merry Christmas was one of the borders. And I put some foam squares under that. Some really good examples of paper layering in this kit. If you haven't done a lot of that, it's really fun. If you have nice coordinating papers like this set is, where everything plays pretty nice with everything else, because all the colors are kind of in that era, that Art Deco era. And I was able to mix and match pretty much at will to come up with some of these layering techniques, and that's what allowed me to get so many cards. Here's my European A6 again. This is going to be another one where I've trimmed it just a bit to fit the paper I had available. In fact, that might even, this actually is an A2 card. You don't see me use a lot of those, but I was using what I had available upstairs, so I didn't have to go down and pull more paper packs. I could have used an A6, but I think it looks quite pretty on the regular American A2, the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card. We've got the card covered in black mirror board. We've got a 1 1/2 inch strip of that gold fancy paper coming down. I've got both my topper and my Season's Greetings button topper on foam squares. Just didn't need any more. It's quite pretty. I told you I had done one where I decorated the tree. This is the corner of that double-sided printed paper that has the larger tree on it, and I had fun playing with this. I put iridescent glitter on my tree, and then I just used a bottle of Stickles and followed the cord that she's hanging on the tree to create those gold cables. I put little gold, little just dots of my gold Stickles up here in the ornament topper, and I put the same Stickles a little bit in her hair, in their headband that she's wearing. Season's Greetings. Here's one of my borders. This one is one where I put it down on the Mary board, and again, I think this would be better if it were on something darker than the Mary. So consider putting that on paper instead of directly on the mirror board, but otherwise I think the card is just spectacular. So there's some fun you can have actually glittering and decorating some of these cards. Okay, 5x7. This one's on a 5x7 pearl card, and I just let the pearl show. I liked it. I thought it was pretty with the topper. Here's one of my Xyron borders. This time I've put it on a piece of green paper, and I cut the same green paper to be a background for my topper and my sentiment. And everything is glued flat on this one, but isn't that pretty? And finally, I think this is number 29, unless I've dropped anything. Here is another card that is done with, on the A6 Pearl card. I just used my small topper, a sentiment. Here's another. This topper also is fairly small. But when you add it with the little button of the same girl and you put the sentiment underneath, you kind of draw that image down and make that image bigger. Here's my double-sided paper. I put my acetate with the Xyron adhesive on it on a piece of white paper, and I made my Merry Christmas greeting and applied that to the side, and that was it. Okay, once again, this is an Art Deco Christmas by Hunkydory Crafts. I'm Debbie from Simply Special Crafts. If you like this video and you'd like to see more of them, please give me the thumbs up letting me know that you like what you see and you'd like to see more. That's kind of my attaboy that says we did a good job. And if you're not already a subscriber, hit that subscribe button and you never have to miss one of our videos. We also have a newsletter that we follow each one of our videos with, and I will link you to not only the book or the kit that I use, but I will also link you to any of the supplies that I used in the construction of the cards. There'll be a newsletter link right below this video. Just click the link and go out to where you can put in your information for the newsletter. We'll start sending those to you. Once again, I'm Debbie from Simply Special Crafts, and we'll see you next time.